Welcome to another episode of the Love Your Story podcast, where I get to delve into people's amazing stories to learn from their experiences and share that with you. Today, I have two guests with me. This is a new approach for Love Your Story. But this story, the death of Kylee Bruce, is one of surviving and thriving for those she left behind. And the two people who loved and lost in this story are Kylee's mother, Gaylene, and her fiancé, Brandon Forseth. Together, they will tell the story of her tragic loss and the ways that they have found to survive. Stay tuned. Stories are our lives in language. Welcome to the Love Your Story podcast. I'm Lori Lee, and I'm excited for our future together of telling stories, evaluating our own stories, and lifting ourselves and others to greater places because of our control over our stories. This podcast is about empowerment and giving you, the listener, ideas to work with in making your stories work for you. Story power serves you best when you know how to use it. I want to start today with a poem from Maya Angelou. It's called When I Think of Death. When I think of death, and of late the idea has come with alarming frequency, I seem at peace with the idea that a day will dawn when I no longer be among those living in this valley of strange humors. I can accept the idea of my own demise, but I am unable to accept the death of anyone else. I find it impossible to let a friend or relative go into that country of no return. Disbelief becomes my close companion, and anger follows in its wake. I answer the heroic question, Death, where is thy sting? With, it is here in my heart and mind and memories. Joining me today are Gaylene and Brandon, both from Oregon. When Gaylene was young, her father shot her mother and then committed suicide. From a young age, Gaylene had the opportunity to figure out how to process loss. But she says that one of the things that is most important about her story is the way she has learned from others how to do this and that it can be done. Her life has included the loss of her parents, a marriage through divorce, and then the loss of her daughter Kylee when she was killed in an automobile accident. And her process of seeking for tools and processing pain has been an important part of her journey. When Kylee died in a car accident in December of 2016, she was carrying Brandon, her fiancé's child. Brandon said, I'm not an expert on love. I was just really good at loving Kylee. My story is one of true love, grief, and how I found a way to keep my Kylee's legacy alive. I haven't yet been able to overcome grief completely, and I doubt I ever will, but I have found a way to keep waking up every morning with purpose. So today, we're going to talk about Kylee's story and how to process grief, how to survive and thrive despite loss, speaking with two people who have some real hands-on experience with it. Welcome, Gaylene and Brandon, to the Love Your Story podcast. Where does the story start, you two? Who was Kylee?
Well, Kylee it was my daughter. She was a kid who always was just like in her own little world. Her grandpa came in one day and she was sitting at the table with some swim goggles on. And he looks at her and he said, Kylee, what's going on in your little world today? And that pretty much sums up Kylee. She was her own person. She spent hours and hours on her hands and knees pretending like she was a horse. She loved hard, and the thing I think I remember and love the most about her is that she just told it like it was. She said exactly what she was thinking, and nobody had to guess what she was thinking.
I can appreciate that. Brandon, who was Kylee to you?
You know, just from what Gaylene said when she was young, when I met her, years later, that description fit her as an adult. She was definitely unwavering in her opinions. They were strong opinions, and it didn't really matter what anybody thought if they didn't agree with her. She just stood firm in her opinions on things and who she accepted in her life. And if she did decide to love somebody, like Gaylene said, she loved hard and with all of herself for sure. And that's what drew me to her. And I think that's the best way to describe her, is just that she was just a very real person.
How long had you two been together before she was killed?
I think it was about 1.5 years.
So what were you guys' plans for life before the accident took place?
When I met Kylee, I had just recently started my own business. So I was kind of in a whirlwind of trying to, get steady income coming in and in a really big kind of transition period. And then when I met Kylee, I was a little nervous because I was in kind of the most unstable position in my, adulthood that I had been for the longest time. And she actually thought it was really cool that I was taking a big risk and kind of quit my career and was taking that leap forward. And so that's kind of, and she was also in a transition with her career, and she was teaching and had some other great ideas. And so our plan for life was really to kind of grow together in our relationship and also in our professional careers, and kind of figure out along the way what it is we wanted to do. We both knew that we wanted to, be able to support ourselves and our eventual family, but along the way, help people as much as we could. So it was just something we were figuring out as we went along, I guess.
Thank you. Can you take me to the accident? What took place?
I had gotten home from work. It was kind of a late night. I was tired. She was dressed and getting ready to go to open gym basketball. She loved basketball. It was a huge part of her life through high school and even afterward.
I like this girl already. Strong opinions and a basketball player. We might be soul sisters.
Yeah, she really did love that sport. And she was a couple months along at that time, maybe a little bit more in her pregnancy. And when I got home, she's like, I want to go play open gym with Kristen, who is her best friend and a great friend of the family. And Kristen's actually dating Gayleen's youngest son right now.
Keeping it in the family.
Yep.
Yeah, but anyways, so she was kind of asking me, like, hey, how do you feel about, me playing basketball with me being, pregnant and stuff like that? And I was like, yeah, I think it's fine. Just, make sure you tell all the guys there to, not be so rough or anything like that. And we talked for a bit that night, and she asked if I wanted to go, and I had just gotten home and she was leaving that minute. And so I told her, not this time, I'll go next time. I'm pretty tired. I think I'm just going to kick back and relax. And that over here in Central Oregon that year was the worst winter I can remember in my life. We're talking like 2 feet of snow on the ground. But the roads weren't too terribly bad that night. But anyway, she left, walked down the stairs, came back in a couple minutes later, and she thought she had forgotten her basketball bag, but it wasn't there. And so she left, and I would say about 15, 20 minutes passed by, and Kristen called me and said, hey, Kylee hasn't showed up yet. And I said, well, the roads are a little rough. Give her some time. I'm sure she'll be there. And Kylie's phone was she was having issues with it, so she wasn't receiving texts or phone calls. And so I couldn't really reach out to her and just be like, hey, where are you at? So then I'd say about 15, 20 minutes later, Kristen said she's still not here. And I looked out my upstairs window, and I saw that the traffic was stopped on the highway. I could see the highway from my house. And my immediate thought was, there must have been a wreck, and she's stuck in the traffic and her phone's not working, so she can't call and let anybody know. And so I told Kristen, like, I'll just walk out there and see if I can see her car. And, and so it was real cold, so I took off jogging that way. I'd say it's probably about a mile and a half or so. I was telling her she needs to get her phone fixed, so we can stay in communication. I was going to tell her, like, this is the reason you need to, have a phone that works for, instances like this. And so that was not once did I think, the worst. I was thinking, I just need to tell her we need to get her a new phone. The closer I got to, where all the lights and sirens were and stuff, still wasn't seeing Kylie's car. And I saw kind of a dark colored car, but it looked blue to me. Kylee drove a little black car. And I asked a firefighter, I said, what color is that car? And he said, it's blue. And I said, okay. And I immediately kind of felt some relief. And then I got up to, where there was a bunch of firefighters and police officers kind of gathered in a little group. And I asked them, I said, like what vehicles were involved in this wreck? And they said, who are you? And I said, my name's Brandon. My girlfriend left a while ago. I haven't heard from her. And I'm just making sure she's okay. And they said, well, what's your girlfriend's name? And I said, Kylee. And they all kind of looked at each other and started to kind of surround me in a way, because, we're in the middle of a highway. And so then they said, Kylee was in a wreck and she's deceased. And so I immediately went into, was it Kylee Bruce? Can you verify that Bruce is her last name? And he went and asked one of the other guys, and they said, yeah. And wow. From there, it's kind of a blur, just a rush of emotions. But I do remember, kind of trying to get towards the car. And
what did you think when they said that? Just you saying that, my stomach just sinks.
Yeah. What
was the first thing that hit you?
A lot of different emotions all tied up into one really small period of time. It was no, it can't be her. Let me go over there. They would grab me and hold me.
Don't you hate it when they do that?
Yeah. Yelling, screaming, kind of trying to rip their arms off me, things like that. Eventually, I just kind of fell down or into this snowbank thing, and just kind of overcome by shock and grief. And they got me into this is only about, as a crow flies, only, a half mile or from my house, or so, probably a mile of road driving. But they got me in a car and took me home. And, from there, I don't remember much more from that night. I remember Zach, the oldest son of Gaylene's. I remember him coming later that night, and my stepdad came.
Did you get to see her so that you really knew that it was real, or were you still wondering? Or
no, the last time I ever saw Kylee was when she walked down the stairs to go to basketball.
So you never saw her body?
No, I chose not to view her during the open casket. I think everybody else did, but I have a pretty good memory of the last time I saw her. She kind of told, we kind of had a little joke between us when she left. I asked her to pick me up some ice cream when she came home. And she said, we'll see you, fatty, or something like that, so we just kind of jabbing at each other like that all the time. And, it was smiles and kisses, and that's imprinted into my brain. And I felt as if I were to view her in the coffin or wherever, that would be the image I saw when I thought of her.
Gaylene, can we shift to you for a minute? What was your experience with this? How did you find out?
Sure. So I was with an elderly lady that I take care of 3 nights a week. I was just leaving her house. This was probably about 9:30 at night. And I got a call from Zach, my oldest son. And he, my phone was on vibrate, and I was just headed out the door, so I didn't get the call, but I looked when I got in my car and saw that I had a missed call from his town, but not his cell number. And he left me a message saying, Mom, can you call me when you get this message? So as I drove away, I rang the number, and he said, what are you doing so that you can't answer your son's phone call or something like that? And I said, well, I'm just leaving Edna's, and I'm headed home. And I said, what are you doing calling me this time of night? And he said, well, I have some bad news. And at first, I was thinking that it had something to do with his wife and his kiddos. because she is just a newly licensed driver. And I thought, oh, I wonder if she was driving back from town and, something happened with them. And so that was my initial thought. And he told me that Kylee had been in a car wreck and that she didn't make it. And I just remember pulling over to the side of the road and screaming into the phone. And I said, God, please, why did you take my baby? And I think I was just saying no, no, no over again. And my son, who is really my rock, just let me vent, just let me cry and yell. And finally, I asked him what happened. I said, where is she? How did it happen? And he told me that it actually happened about 6:30, and they weren't able to get the call until about 9:30 because they were also at open gym, but they were in another town playing basketball.
How did he know? How did he find out about it?
The sheriff, Kristen finally got a hold of my youngest son, Zeram, who she was dating. And she finally got a hold of him once he got cell service. And so Zeram got a hold of Zach really quickly because he had just dropped him off at the place he was living. And he got a hold of him on the radio on the ranch and said, Zach, you need to come back here right now. And so Zeram told Zach. And then Zachary told me. So, and then after that, I believe that the sheriff actually came out as well to tell Zachary, but he already knew by that time. He told me what had happened, that Kai was headed to open gym and that she had had an accident. And then he informed Kylie's dad. And so the first thing I did after I got off the phone with Zach was to call my husband and tell him. And then as I drove in to my driveway, I just told him that I needed to get off the phone so that I could go and do probably the hardest thing that I have ever done in my life. I had to walk into that house and tell my youngest daughter that her sister was gone. And that, coupled with the loss of my daughter, was really excruciating. It was horrible. So I told her, and we yelled and we screamed and we cried together. And then it doesn't take long for people to find out. As we started getting telephone calls and support from people, and I talked with her dad, and then we all just kind of made plans to go to the ranch where Kylee had actually worked that summer before, and where my son lives. And so we all gathered at the ranch the next day to just be together and start making plans.
So what did the next days and weeks and months look like as far as processing that grief for both of you?
The next day, for whatever reason, I decided to make a Facebook post. Partly because I knew I was, going to get a ton of texts and calls. What happened? People were hearing that there was a Kylee that got in a car wreck in that general area where we lived. And, so I was already getting, texts and calls. Was that your Kylee? And I just didn't want to interact. My way of processing things is a lot of times it's just on my own, in my own head. And then the other part was, I felt like I had all these things. I felt like I had all these things that I needed to tell her still. So I made this Facebook post, basically just talking to her and our child, and turned my phone off when I was done. And by the end of the day, I think it had 35,000 likes, and by the next few days, it millions of people and millions of shares, and
wow,
MSN and all these different national news sites, and it was being printed in different languages in China, and it was in Australia and in South America, and it turned into this massive thing. And and that's really where Kylie's story didn't end on that night in 2016 in December. It really started that next day. And so that's kind of how I to answer your question, that's kind of how I was able to process all of that and still today, how I was able to process it. And it was really weird for me, because that's not what I would normally do in any sort of situation like that. I wouldn't reach out. I'm the type that would turn down people offering to bring meals or people offering to do this. I just, I appreciate those things, but I normally turn that stuff down. But I didn't really have a choice in this. I put it out there as a Facebook post, and it was there for the world. And then all of this stuff started coming in, and then I started being able to occupy my time by, reading people's messages and reading people that have also experienced loss and how they dealt with it, and recommendations, and how, this was changing people's lives and stuff. And, personally, that's really what got me through, and is still getting me through, today.
So creating that community and having people start to rally and be there and discussing this is part of grieving and dealing with loss.
Yeah, exactly. It was a way of talking to a million people without talking to anyone. I was able to write and type just exactly what was in my head, without fear of people criticizing it or I would just put it out there straight from my heart, and people just really responded, and then I was able to really start telling Kylie's story and, helping her achieve her goal of, changing people's lives.
So where did this go? Didn't you end up starting like a GoFundMe, and then this support and community that you'd created kind of got on board here? Can you tell us about that?
That was actually my niece that started the GoFundMe account. And then we were able to, so many people came, like out of the woodwork. And we had so much support and so much love. And there was so much left over that we were able to pay for the services, pay for some of the family to be able to fly down for the services. And so with that, we are just right now finding people, finding organizations, great charities, things like that, that we can give back to. So our whole purpose is giving back. We thought about a scholarship fund, and that was like the forefront of our minds for a year and a half. But for some reason, I couldn't move forward with it. I didn't have like this passion or or this excitement about the scholarship fund. And then Brandon and I were talking a little bit about what we wanted on our website and how we wanted to make that scholarship fund work and everything. And I said, for the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about reaching out and kind of manifesting, partnering with some great companies or charities. And he said, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, maybe like on a very small scale of Mike Rowe, when you go and you pay it forward. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. And his one of Brandon's comments was, everybody does scholarships. Kylee is unique, and we need to do something unique with that money so that we can really, really change people's lives, because that's what she wanted. She wanted to make a difference. And I truly believe that her story is making a difference. If one person just says, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to love harder, I'm going to go reconcile that relationship that may be broken, anything just to make, to help people understand that life is so short and that there just really isn't time for negativity. And just to help people understand that also, the Love Hard Project Facebook page group is kind of a place where people can come and put great things on there, really positive energy, but also people have taken the opportunity to write their grief stories there as well. They feel safe. They feel like they can share that. And nobody is going to judge them. They can grieve how they need to for as long as they need to. And there's always people there that support them and send out positive energy, send prayers their way. And so the page has really just kind of been, I think that was kind of my way of trying to help Kylee make a difference so that people would feel safe telling their stories basically on that page as well.
So is this part of your grieving process? Because, and we haven't introduced this yet, but you've got the hashtag Love Hard Project and the Kylee Bruce Memorial Foundation, creating both of these and supporting things that Kylee would have been all about. Is this also part of the process of celebrating who she was and feeling like she's still with you? And is that part of the grieving process for you both?
I would say yes. Definitely the Love Hard Project and things. I think from an outsider's perspective, I think it's been really great for Gaylene. It's kind of given her something to latch onto where, she's helping people, and it's surrounded by positivity. Even though people are telling their stories of grief, people we don't know will jump on there and offer support and offer advice and things like that. For me personally, it's important to me for people to know that, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for Kylee, and sometimes people will comment or send me a message and say, you're a great writer, you should write a book or some, things like that. And it makes me, I don't take compliments very well anyways, but, I'm always quick to remind people that, it's Kylie's story. I'm just, the one typing the words out, thousands of messages I've received and comments that say, because I read your post, I decided to, reconcile with my husband, or I called my mom, who I haven't talked to in 7 years, and, kind of hashed everything out, and we have a relationship again. People will tag their significant others, their wives or their husbands on the post and say, I love you. I don't tell you enough. So last year on Kylie's birthday, I went through as many comments and messages as I could, and I picked out a lot of those ones I was referring to earlier of people reconciling or thanking for opening their eyes to, that all of our time is limited here, and you shouldn't spend any of that time hating or having any sort of animosity towards another person. And I went through and I found all sorts of comments and messages like that, and I screenshotted them, and I compiled an album. I don't even know how many, probably at least 100, but that's, that has even scratched the surface. And I posted an album on Facebook, and it was my birthday gift to Kylee to show her, you always wanted to change the world, and now you're doing it, so she would always say, one thing we didn't talk about Kylee is that she was a caregiver. She was a caregiver of the elderly, of special needs children. And she was also a preschool teacher. She always found her calling to be in helping and assisting others, and especially the less fortunate. And she really grew to love her students or her patients. And, when they were in pain, she felt that. And she would tell me stories about them. And I could just tell that, they were all important to her. And that's what she wanted to do ultimately with her life is continue to help people and to change lives. And she would always, she would tell me how many kids she would want. And it was always more than I envisioned having. And I would be like, well, I don't know about that. And she's like, we're both, good people. We both, love pretty hard. And, I want to have a lot of kids so that we can create more good people. The world needs more good people, and more people that, can feel love and know how to love themselves. And, and I'm a provider. I thrive in roles of providing and helping. And that's really where the foundation of my purpose lies, is if my family needs help, or if, somebody needs me to assist them, I spring into action. And then that's really where I feel like my purpose is. And, when my role as a provider in a physical sense was taken away, I still felt some sort of responsibility to still do something, and that's when I started telling her story, and I started making posts and writing, and just writing about her and who she was and how I felt about her, and things we talked about. And, like I said, people just really started responding, and it's changed so many people's lives around the entire world. And that's what's important to me, is that people know that Kylie's changed the world, not me, but her.
And you've helped her do that as her partner.
Yeah, I think that's the best way that, I can show her that I love her, and, I'll never forget her. I'm willing to be that outlet for her to, accomplish her dreams and her goals. So
you run, you hide, a safe disguise, and disappear behind the light. Think you're clever, fool me never. Caught red-handed, you don't know. I see the superhero inside of you. You are the fist in the fight, standing up on the front lines. You are the streak in the sky, showing up in the nick of time. I see just who you are in what you leave behind. Anonymous.
If you had to give advice, and looking at your own route that you have taken, what do you think are the most helpful things in dealing with this level of grief?
I think obviously not everybody who loses somebody is going to make a Facebook post and have it go viral around the world. So I'm very lucky in that sense of the outpouring of support and love I've received, and I feel for people that don't get that have to kind of figure it out on their own. So, it's hard for me to give somebody who wouldn't be in that same scenario advice. And this is how I did it, because, I had, people wanting to send me her favorite Scentsy smells and deliver me meals and send me things in the mail. And I know there's a lot of people out there that lose people that don't have that. And, but my best advice as far as, you still have to deal with that internal grief, and you still have to figure it out on your own. And as cliche as it is, it's just the time. Eventually the grief and the sadness slowly is replaced by happy memories. And then you can tell stories, and you can laugh because you remember something she said, or you can watch videos, and the smiles and laughter become more frequent and the tears become less frequent. And, that's just what happens over time. My best advice would be to just get your feeling, whether you need to write, whether you want to talk, whether you need to call somebody, write it in a journal and nobody's ever going to read it. Anything that's in your head that wants out, to get it out, to put it on paper, to say it. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't worry about grammar or run-on sentences or what people would think. I just said it. And, people really responded to that. And it helped people that have experienced loss of their own or grief of their own. And, so is my best advice, is just to realize that every emotion, whether it's anger, sadness, happiness, is a blessing. You have to be alive to feel sadness. You have to be alive to feel grief. You have to be alive to feel anger. And although those things seem like negative things, it really is a gift that we're allowed to experience them. And I think you should embrace each of them. I think each of them have a place in your emotion and in your life. But I think you should always let love and happiness win in the end. And it may take longer for some people. It may take different techniques. But if you can reach a place of love and happiness, then I think you'll be able to wake up every morning and still have a positive outlook on life and feel like you have a purpose to be here, for sure.
And Gaylene, what about you? What are those? What are the things you've learned? Because you have additional losses, the loss of your parents and the loss of your marriage and the loss of your daughter. So you have had a lifetime of learning how to do this. What have you learned about how to deal with loss?
I think the biggest thing is, I agree with Brandon, we have to feel what our loss is before we can even address it. And so my sister helped me an awful lot get through the anger of the loss of my mom, because it was at the hands of my father. And I'm slowly working through that anger at my father. I haven't even got there yet. I'm not finished with that part of my story yet. So she helped me a lot to just be able to use the tools, know what tools to use in order to get past that. I have done a lot of writing and burning, crumpling up, throwing it in the garbage, whatever. And then I've also, as I drive, I live out in a very remote area. So when I drive, I have a long ways to go to really get to anywhere. I do a lot of talking in my car to myself and to those that I feel like I need to have that conversation with. And so she helped me with those tools. And with Kylee, the same things. However, There are days when I am busy, then that's where I needed to throw myself is into something that helps me to stay busy and focused on what I think would bring her the most honor and what she would want me to do. I know she doesn't want any of us to be sad. She doesn't want any of us to be angry or bitter. And so I just know she wants us to be out doing good things for people. She wants us to be being productive and serving other people. So there are days, though, when I don't feel like that's what I want to do. The 20th of this month was the 20th month that she has been gone, and it fell right 3 days about 3 days after her 26th birthday. So that was a really hard time there for me. And I thought about her all the time, like all day long. And there was a time when I just said, you know what? Normally what I say is I would love to have her back here, with me so I could hear her giggle and I could, talk to her again about what her aspirations are and what, she's doing with her life and watch her be a mom and snuggle that grandbaby. But I wouldn't want to take her from where she's at. But a couple of days ago, I felt like that. I felt very selfish. And I'm like, I do want to take her from where she's at. I want her here with me today because I just missed her so much. And I wanted to be able to touch her. So basically just feeling the feelings that you have and acknowledging that. And I stayed in that all day long. I stayed in that selfish mode all day long because I felt like if I ignored it, that I wouldn't really face it, and then it would just be buried again. So just knowing that she wants me to be doing something productive is my biggest thing, and knowing how much she has touched other people's lives is a big thing for me too, for the survival.
Is the Love Hard Project a space, as I understand it, where other people who are dealing with this type of loss come and they're sharing their stories and you're supporting? And is this the type of advice that you give them and allow them just the space to share that? Is that kind of what the Love Hard Project is?
It is. It started out just to be a place where we, because I just felt like I felt the weight of the negativity in the world. And every time I got on Facebook, there was something horrible or negative, and it just was really sucking my energy. So I had thought for about 3 days, you should do a Facebook group where it's just nothing but really positive, good things, and let people post on there where they see people loving hard. And where we got that was after Kylee died and people kind of started to write and to remember her, that hashtag just kind of started popping up. So I adopted the Live Happy, Love Hard hashtags. And so that's what I decided to call the Facebook page, was the Love Hard Project, because my vision was to make a project out of it, to be able to help other people and do those projects. So it started out as just a very in high energy, good positive place. And then people just kind of started to post those grievances once they read, why I had made the page, had made the group. And so they started to post. And so, yes, that's the advice that we give. And there's so many people that just support each other because they've all, been through that loss. And that's my main goal, I think, is to let people see each other's stories and see how they're grieving and see how they are moving on and, surviving and not staying in the victim mode and actually conquering. So I just read a quote by Dr. Laura Schlesinger in one of her books. And she said, that we shouldn't be satisfied with being a victim nor with being a survivor. She said, you should aim to be a conqueror. And so I thought that was excellent. Let's survive, but also let's conquer this thing and, see what good that we can do in the world.
So I hear from both of you then that the main tips for surviving grief is, number one, to let yourself feel your emotions, whatever they are, not to bottle them up, not to stifle them, not to be ashamed of them, not to think they should be something different than they are, but to let them be what they are and to let them out and to sit with them. And then the second is to seek community and sharing and voicing or writing or seeking support outside yourself. And then finally, just not giving up, allowing the healing that comes with time to move you forward, that there is something better as the days move forward and the pain slowly dulls, that there's something before you. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, to this day, I probably get 3 or 4 a week messages of somebody who's experienced loss, and they ask me, how I'm still going. And I tell everybody that there's no wrong way to grieve. Everybody has their own way, whether it's a support group or it's keeping certain things around that remind you of the person you lost, or getting everything out that you don't want to be reminded. There's no wrong or right way to do it. But I think that, the goal for everybody is to, at the end, no matter how long it takes you or what steps you have to take, or what you have to do, the goal is to realize that you still have a purpose on this world, on this earth, and that you need to keep going, and that life is worth living, and that, to not give up. I guess to summarize it is, don't give up, no matter how much you want to, no matter how sad you are, no matter how much you feel like your world is crashing down. There's still positivity. There's still a difference you can make, a positive difference you can make on others around you. So,
thank you, Gaylene. Thank you, Brandon, for being here and sharing your story and her story. In closing, Gaylene, do you have any final words you'd like to share?
No, I think Brandon summed it up really, really well, just by encouraging those around you that it is still worth living, and there are ways that you can deal with your grief, ways that you can help yourself to feel better. And I think the most important thing is just serving people. When you're serving others and trying to find something good and things to be grateful for every day, it'll make that process just a little bit easier.
Thank you.
A special thanks to our sponsor today, Madeline Page. She was one of the top 20 finalists in season 6 on NBC's The Voice. She has let us use music from her album Anymore.
Washington Irving said, quote, "There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are the messengers of overwhelming grief, of deep contrition, and of unspeakable love." Unquote. The pains of loss can leave us stripped of hope, of a desire to go on, and rack us with the worst pains we can experience in this life. But as we've discussed today, there is a way to survive. There is a tomorrow. And even though you perhaps can't see it in the dark places, others have gone before you and found the way. Follow in their footsteps, even if you're crawling. One step at a time, allow for grieving and loving and celebrating those beautiful souls that you have walked with. Thanks for being with us today for Kylie's story and for Gaylene and Brandon's stories and journeys through grief. Your challenge this week is to love hard on the people who are important to you. We don't ever know when loss will knock on our door. So today, in this moment, right now, love with all your heart. No regrets. Share this episode with someone who could use it, and check out the Love Your Story podcast website for all the past episodes, classes, and life story challenges that help you live your best life story moving forward. Thanks for being here this week, and we'll see you next week on the Love Your Story podcast.